session, I created a landing page where we're just showing this Babylon.js full screen canvas and rendering a sphere in the middle of our scene. And the kind of camera that we have is an arc rotate camera, which means that we're spinning about the object, but we're not pushing out into the scene. So as a next step, I would like to be able to add XYZ movement of the camera and then be able to broadcast that position and rotation to another connected browser. So first, let's take a look at the JavaScript. So we have the scene file here. And here you can see we're creating an arc rotate camera. By the way, I changed the imports to use specific files so that it helps with the tree shaking. It results in a smaller bundle. So instead of the arc rotate camera, I'm going to import the free camera. So then we'll replace the camera with takes an initial position. And the scene. And I think that's all it needs. And oh. So we'll save that away and see how that works now. And I bet, okay, so now I can use my left, right, forward, backward, the cursor keys, and I can see my position relative to the ball. We can move the ball back a little bit so that we can see it. So I'll just push it back by modifying the Z, maybe 5 meters forward. Is it forward or backward? Let me check. Okay. Okay, so we can still drag to rotate and do that. Next, we can remove some of the unused. Next, we want to use WebSockets to share this information about our camera position to another connected browser. And partly that's one of the reasons why I chose Phoenix, is because it has good support for WebSockets and things called channels. So there is a generator that we can use. So let's try running that. So we can do mix Phoenix generate channel and the channel name, which will be space. So this will create some boilerplate code that we could take a look at. So here it's saying that it created 3 files. One is the space channel file and a test for it, and then another test file for testing channels in general. But also says that there's no user socket, and would you like to create one? And we'll say yes. So now it's created 2 more files, an Elixir user socket and then a demo user socket JS to show us how we can connect to that socket. And now we need to add that socket to our endpoint. So we'll grab this and we'll put it inside this file endpoint. So we'll just put it next to this other socket for live views. And we'll save that away. So now we have a new /socket endpoint that will go and use this new Elixir file, this user socket that was created right here. And what this does is it creates this concept of a socket, and you can have these channels hanging off of this socket. And the channel is like a kind of a pub/sub system where you can join different rooms. And so because we said that the room is going to be called space, here it will glob any kind of space ID. So a new kind of server or room, if you want, will be created for different IDs that you pass here, supporting different chat rooms. And here's some boilerplate implementation for this kind of, I guess it's a behavior, where you could do some authentication and validation. So right now, it doesn't really care. It's just handing you back the socket struct and an ID with a default implementation of nil. So we'll come back later when we want to set up authentication. But for right now, this will allow us to connect to a space channel from within a user socket. So any variables that we would insert onto the socket would be available to the channel. The other file that it made as part of this generator was the space channel. So if we look at this, this is the space channel where you can handle, so it gave us a default implementation. And so the user socket is somebody connected to space something. It would flow through to this code here for each instance of a different room. Right now, it only implemented the lobby room. So the lobby is the only kind of star that we could join right now. So we can change this. And then it says, it's doing some fake authorization. So it's saying if authorized, given the payload that comes in through here, then we'll say okay in a socket, otherwise we'll kick them out. And this authorized is implemented here. What is this error here? Nil can never succeed. Oh, maybe that has to do with this user socket here. So we're connecting with param socket this. Connect. We're sending it 3 arguments. I'm actually not sure what this error is. And finally, it says that in order to connect from the front end, we need to import user socket, which is another file that they created for us here. And so here they're importing socket library from Phoenix, creating a new socket, and then I think they connect to the socket and then connect to a channel. So there's not going to be a channel for room 42. This was just an example. So if we just simply use this, let's see what errors we get. So let's import user socket in app.js. And we'll do it inside here, inside the make scene. Actually, we'll do it here. server. So if we navigate and reload this page, unable to join, and it's because there's an unmatched topic here. So that was as expected because we don't have anything that this could route to. But if we change this to space, and I think the lobby is the only room, if it joins this successfully, it will say join successfully or unable to join. Okay, so we do get joined successfully here. And in the space channel, we can just remove this for now. We'll do authentication in a different way later. So in here, we can just return OK and the socket. And then I believe we might be able to do this space ID. That should glob that. And I can do IO inspect space ID. Space ID. So when we join here, we should see an output of lobby here. Okay, so we want to add the colon part here. Whoops. So we're decomposing, and now in user socket JS, instead of connecting only to the lobby, we can connect to window space ID. So now I kind of want to move this into a function that we can call. So instead of defining this as you import it, you have all kinds of side effects. I want to put this into a kind of script. Let me save this first, and then we'll call this broker. Let's change this to TypeScript. Okay, so we want to import this from Phoenix, which is I'm not sure where it gets that from. CSS. One second. We might have to import it into Node.js, or let's see, can you get it from, change only the socket now, import socket and channel from, so Phoenix isn't here. need to import their types. So cd assets npm install at types Phoenix. See, do we have a window user token? We don't. That isn't there. Okay, now it's there. Can I find out the corresponding declarations? Okay, so now we imported the type. TypeScript is happy, I guess. And let's wrap some of this up into a function. So let's just say function export const create broker will be a function, and then we'll do all of this stuff inside of there. Okay, so we're creating the socket. That's going to use user socket, and with a proper token we'll do the authentication. And then what is this stuff? When you connect, you'll often need to authenticate the client. You're going to put some user token. Yes, if current user. Yeah, we'll handle all of that later. And then you can assign, okay, window user token like that. And then you can verify it in the backend like that. So we'll do Phoenix socket connect, and then we'll get this part from window.space ID. And remember, we passed that from the show template, right? So this bit of window space ID is fed from the backend. And now in app.js, we can import broker, yes, but we're going to import a function from broker. Let me finish saving this away. So we're going to connect space ID, join, and then we don't need this. Okay, so this create broker will be imported here. Create broker from our entry point. App.js contains make scene and create broker, and then we look for a canvas element, and if there is a canvas, then we'll make the scene and we'll create the broker. Oh, we could even pass in the space ID here. Let's do that. So modify, and we'll say that the space ID, I should probably use consistent variable naming string, and we'll just pass this down here to space ID. Okay, so now we should be hooked up. So when we restart the server, we'll be connected by Phoenix channels. So we'll reload this. We've connected successfully, and now we need to push some information through. So we need to get a stream of our rotation and position. So in the scene, we can add a Babylon.js listener whenever the camera matrix changes. So here on the camera on view matrix changed observable, we can add a new function. And what we have here is I think the camera position to array, so we can, or as array, so we can console log this thing. Let's just show that we can get a stream of streaming data out. This is our camera position. It's all zeros because we haven't moved, but if we move forward, then we get data. And we also can get rotation information. So we can console log the camera rotation, which would be absolute rotation. And now when we rotate, we're getting a quaternion data here as well. And so if we want to send this, then we need a way of getting to the channel, because with the channel you can push data. So we would be able to do channel push and then some name of an event like person moved, and then some payload. So it could be the position and rotation, like that. We could send it to space channel, so we have to add a new handle in with the name of the event and the payload. Then we could choose to do something to it. We could store it in the state, or we could broadcast it to other connected members, in which case the broker would have to handle a channel on type of thing. So on a certain event, choose to do something with it. So with this, we kind of need a way for these two things to talk to each other. The scene out here doesn't really know anything about the broker, and the broker doesn't really know anything about the camera position. So how do we tie these two things together? So in the next video, I want to talk about a kind of JavaScript side pub sub, so that I could just give a kind of context object to both of these things, and then be able to pub sub on it. So I could push into that context, or a channel, to say, hey, this is happening, and on this side I could observe that something is happening and be able to forward it out. So we'll talk about those things that are enabled by a library called RxJS in a future video.